Hey, my loves. Today, I want to talk about something that a lot of people quietly struggle with, but almost nobody talks about this openly. And that is this question: is this normal? Because when you grow up in a toxic family system, there are things that happen over and over again that everyone just acts like they are normal. And when you're young, you don't question it. You assume that this is just how families are. But something inside of you always feels a little uneasy, like something doesn't quite make sense. And sometimes you don't even realize how unhealthy it was until you're an adult and you start interacting with other families and you start thinking, wait a minute, they don't treat each other like this. And suddenly you start questioning everything you grew up believing was normal. So today, I want to talk about 5 things that are not normal in healthy families, even though toxic families try very hard to normalize them. And if you've experienced any of these, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not dramatic, you are not overly sensitive, and you are definitely not imagining things. Sometimes what you're seeing is simply the truth. Number 1, being criticized for things that never even happened. This one is more common than people realize. In toxic family systems, you can end up being criticized or judged for things that literally never happened. I'll give you a simple example. One time, one of my brothers made a comment about how my cooking was bad. And I remember sitting there thinking, wait, what? Because I had never cooked for him in my life. He's lived in New York most of his life, and I lived in Florida most of mine. I've never cooked for him, not once. Now, in a healthy environment, someone will laugh and say, oh wait, that's right, you never cooked for me. But that's not how toxic systems work. In toxic systems, facts don't matter as much as the role people assign you. Once someone is labeled as the difficult one, the problem child, the one who isn't good enough, then suddenly criticisms start appearing out of nowhere. It's almost like the story matters more than the truth. And when you're younger, those little comments start planting seeds in your mind. You start wondering, maybe I am bad at things. Maybe I mess things up. Maybe I really am the problem. But when you step back as an adult, you start realizing something. Sometimes the criticism was never about reality. It was about maintaining the narrative. And healthy families don't need a narrative. They deal in reality. Number 2, bringing up things from 20 or 30 years ago, even 40 years ago. Another thing that happens a lot in toxic families is that the past never stays in the past. You could have changed your life completely. You could have grown. You could have evolved. You could have matured. You could have built a career and a family and a beautiful, peaceful life. And somehow, someone will still bring up something you did 30 years ago. Maybe something you said when you were young. Maybe a mistake you made when you were still trying to figure your life out. And the conversation suddenly sounds like it happened yesterday. And you sit there thinking, why are we still talking about this decades later? Healthy families recognize growth. Healthy families say things like, I see how much you've changed. I see how much you've grown. I am incredibly proud of the person who you are today. But toxic family systems often keep people frozen in time, because if they acknowledge that you've grown, they have to update the story they've been telling about you to everyone. And sometimes that story has been told for decades. So instead, they keep reaching back into the past and pulling things forward over and over and over again. But here's the truth. Growth is normal. Humans are supposed to evolve. You're not even the same person that you were a year ago. And healthy families celebrate that. Number 3, when multiple family members gang up on one person. This one is extremely common in dysfunctional family dynamics. And many people don't recognize it until much later in life. Sometimes one person in the family becomes a designated problem. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's obvious, but the pattern is always the same. Several family members will align with each other and reinforce the same message about one person. Things like, you're too sensitive, you always cause drama, you make everything difficult. And when multiple people repeat the same thing, it can start to feel like it must be true. Because you're thinking, well, if everyone believes this about me, maybe it is me. But here's something many therapists talk about when studying family systems. Sometimes families maintain their sense of stability by assigning one person the role of the scapegoat or the role of the black sheep. The same thing. The scapegoat carries the blame. The scapegoat absorbs the tension. And as long as the scapegoat exists, nobody else has to look at their own behavior. But healthy families don't operate like that. Healthy families don't need someone to absorb all the blame. They communicate directly. They take responsibility for their own behavior. They don't create alliances just to make one person feel small. Number 4, boundaries are being treated like betrayal. This one is huge, my friends, because many people who grew up in toxic family systems were never allowed to have boundaries. The expectation was always keep the peace, don't speak up, just go along with things. But something interesting happens when people begin healing. They start learning how to say things like no, or I'm not comfortable with that, or I'm choosing peace right now. And suddenly the reaction from family members can be intense. You might be called selfish, cold, ungrateful, dramatic, but here's the reality. Boundaries are not punishment. Boundaries are simply a way of protecting your emotional and mental well-being. Healthy people respect boundaries. In fact, healthy relationships actually become stronger when boundaries exist. But in toxic systems, boundaries disrupt the pattern, because the system was built around everyone playing specific roles. So when someone steps outside that role, the system becomes uncomfortable. But protecting your peace is not betrayal, it's growth. Number 5, being labeled the problem for wanting peace. This one might be the most confusing for people. Sometimes the person who simply wants calm, respectful relationships end up being labeled the difficult one. Think about that. You're not asking for chaos. You're not asking for conflict. You're simply saying, I want healthy interactions. And somehow that becomes the problem. But here's what often happens in dysfunctional systems. Dysfunction requires participation. If everyone keeps playing their role, the system continues. But when one person decides to stop participating in the unhealthy patterns, everything shifts. And sometimes instead of adjusting, the system tries to push that person back into their old role. But wanting peace is not wrong, my friends. Wanting emotional safety is not wrong. Wanting respectful relationships is not wrong. Those things are actually the most normal things in the world. If you grew up in a toxic family system, you may have spent years wondering if something was wrong with you. They're not. There's nothing wrong with you. But sometimes the truth is much simpler. Sometimes the environment was unhealthy, and you were simply the one who noticed. And here's something beautiful that happens when people start stepping away from toxic dynamics. They begin building healthier relationships. They begin creating peaceful lives. And they begin discovering something powerful, that they were never the problem. They were simply the person who was ready to grow. If this video resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments which one of these you've experienced, because one of the most healing things in the world is realizing you are not the only one who went through this. And my hope is that when you leave this video today, you feel a little more clarity and a lot more peace. Remember, my friends, you are not alone. So many people grew up in environments where unhealthy behavior was normalized, and it takes courage to start seeing it clearly. If anything I shared today made you stop and think, or made you feel a little sense of relief, like, okay, it wasn't just me, then I'm really glad you're here. Let me know in the comments which one of these stood out to you the most. Your story might help someone else realize that they're not alone in this either. And if you're on a journey of healing, growth, and learning how to live your life on your own terms, I would love for you to subscribe and be part of this community. Because over here, we're choosing peace, we're choosing growth, and we're choosing to live life empowered. I'll see you in the next video, my friends. Bye.